Hello, my name is Tara Schiedermayer, and I am a candidate in the Specialist Degree Program for Instructional Technology at Kennesaw State University. This presentation is a review of my capstone project that was completed during the spring of 2014. This project was an applied research project and was titled A Study of the Relationship Between the Use of Technology and Students' Motivation to Learn Social Studies in the 4th grade at Campbell Elementary School. In a world where technology is all around us and is at the forefront of almost everything people do, there are many cases where in education this is not the case. Petkov and Rogers stated, "The fact is that traditional instructional methods are not motivating today's technology-dependent students. The trend towards using technology in the classroom has pushed its way into reading, math, and science. However, there is a gap between those subjects and social studies. For most children, social studies is not their favorite subject. Most of our students would not even list it in their top 3. However, it is still an important subject that needs to be taught to our students. It is for this reason that teachers must recognize this gap in the motivation to learn social studies and adjust their lessons to increase the motivation." The purpose of this study was to determine if there was a relationship between the use of technology while teaching social studies and the students' motivation to learn social studies in 4th grade classes at Campbell Elementary School. There were 4 questions that drove this research project. The main question to be answered was, does the use of daily technology in social studies increase students' motivation to learn social studies? After some research was done to choose and evaluate different types of technology programs, 3 more questions were then added to the research project. They were, does blogging motivate 4th grade students to learn social studies? Do web quests motivate 4th grade students to learn social studies? And do interactive websites motivate 4th grade students to learn social studies? A literature review was then completed to look for previous studies and research that has been done in the terms of social studies, technology, and motivation. When looking at elementary schools and social studies, Anderson, Harrison, and Tardino found that less time is being spent on teaching social studies because of the push to increase math and science scores. Zhao and Hodge also found that teachers are not stressing social studies, and because of this, students have a negative view on social studies. However, this does not change the fact that there are many lessons to be learned through social studies. It is stating that many times it is receiving a less of a focus in our classrooms. Duplass found that textbooks are still being relied on by teachers to teach social studies. He also stated that many times those textbooks do not follow the changing curriculum and the changing standards of the classrooms. When looking at motivation in our elementary school students, Gottfried found that academic motivation was positively correlated with school achievement and self-perceptions of academic competence. This shows that motivation is positively correlated with achievement, and it is necessary that we find what will motivate students to want to learn. Usher, Kober, Jennings, and Rentner discussed in their research that they found 3 different approaches successful in motivating students in the classroom. These were alternative learning methods, being able to participate in extracurricular activities, and using technology in the classroom. Literature was also reviewed that dealt specifically with technology and social studies and what previous studies have found to be effective with students. Avis claims that social studies teachers must know how to utilize technology in their classrooms to engage students, promote higher order thinking, and to work collaboratively. Wilson, Wright, Inman, and Matherson, in their study, found effective ways to use technology to teach social studies, with some of them being using cross-curricular studies, inquiry-based learning, and online interaction with blogs and wikis. The research study completed was a quantitative study, and because of departmentalization, 2 different 4th grade classes at Campbell Elementary School were given the opportunity to participate. All students would receive the same instruction from the researcher. 29 students were given parental consent to participate. All the students were either aged 9 or 10. 7 of those students were boys and 22 were girls. The ethnicity breakdown of the participating students was 17 African American, 10 Hispanic, 1 biracial, and 1 Caucasian. To begin the study, a Likert-style pre-survey was given to the students, and it consisted of 6 statements to gauge their motivation for learning social studies. The students had a choice of strongly disagree, somewhat agree, or strongly agree. The 6 statements were: I enjoy learning social studies. Number 2, I am motivated to learn social studies. Number 3, I want to do well in my social studies class. Number 4, I want to learn new things in my social studies classroom. Number 5, I understand most of what I am learning in social studies. And number 6, technology is being used in my social studies class. Students completed this survey anonymously. 5 weeks of daily technology integration then took place. All students, regardless of whether or not they turned in a consent form, received the same instruction. However, only those students with consent forms were allowed to take the surveys. Each day, the students had to complete a blog posting or answer a question on a blog regarding social studies. 2 web quests were worked on over the 5 weeks, and interactive websites were used on a weekly basis, sometimes daily basis. After the 5 weeks of using technology and social studies on a daily basis, the same students who completed the pre-survey completed a post-survey. The 6 statements that were on the pre-survey were again used on the post-survey, so their means could be compared in the analysis section. However, 3 additional statements were included on the post-survey to find out which type of technology motivated the students to want to learn social studies the most. Once all surveys were completed, descriptive statistics was used to analyze the pre and post surveys. Again, the 6 Likert-style survey questions appeared on both the pre and post survey, with an additional 3 statements being added to the post survey. Each response was then given a numerical equivalent and was recorded on a spreadsheet in Excel. All 29 students answered each of the survey questions, so all means were taken from 29 responses. If the student chose strongly disagree, a 1 was recorded. Somewhat disagree received a numerical equivalent of 2. Somewhat agree was equal to a 3, and strongly agree received a 4. The mean and standard deviation were then found for each of the 6 statements. The 6 statements appearing on the pre and post were then compared by their means, and the remaining 3 post-survey statements were looked at to analyze the effects of blogging, WebQuest, and interactive websites. The first statement said, I enjoy learning social studies. The pre-survey mean was a 2.9. This number tells us that the average of the 29 students selected close to somewhat agree on the survey, because somewhat agree was given a 3. At the conclusion of the 5 weeks of technology integration, the mean for that same statement had increased to a 3.34, showing that more students gave a higher rating to the enjoyment of learning social studies. Statement 2 said, I am motivated to learn social studies. The pre-survey mean was a 3.14, and the post-survey mean was a 3.45. Again, there was an increase in the mean, indicating that students' motivation to learn social studies had increased. Statement 3 said, I want to do well in my social studies class. While the mean here did increase from a 3.72 to a 3.83, the pre-survey calculation showed that the students wanted to do well before the technology integration, as the mean is fairly close to the strongly agree response. Statement 4 said, I want to learn new things in my social studies classroom. Although there was a slight decrease, both means are close to the strongly agree response. This indicates that whether or not using daily technology from the before or using daily technology after Students want to learn new things in social studies. Statement 5 said, I understand most of what I am learning in social studies. This statement also showed an increase from 3.00 to 3.38. While this question does not directly answer the research question of does the use of daily technology in social studies learning increase students' motivation to learn social studies, it does indicate that a greater number of students felt they understood most of what they were learning after the technology was integrated daily into social studies. Statement 6 said, technology is being used in my social studies class. The increase in mean here shows that students are recognizing and using technology more in their daily social studies class. The remaining 3 statements were only on the post survey to see which type of technology the students rated as being the most motivating. Statement 7 said, blogging motivates me to learn social studies. This had a mean of 3.55. Statement 8 said, using WebQuest motivates me to learn social studies. This was the lowest mean with 3.52. And Statement 9 said, interactive websites motivate me to learn social studies, and this had a mean of 3.66. These results indicate that all 3 of the different types of technology used motivated students to learn social studies because all 3 were about halfway between the somewhat agree response of a 3 and the strongly agree response of a 4. Reflecting on the applied research project, I feel confident that technology did motivate students in their learning of social studies. Based on the results, 4 of the 6 questions that were on the pre and post surveys increased between a 0.3 and a 0.4. This suggests that technology was a factor in the increase in the students' motivation, likeness, content understanding, and technology use in the classroom. However, there were some variables that could affect student responses that were not addressed in this study. Some of these include interest in the topic being learned about, students' reading level, and students' computer knowledge. Some suggestions for further research that I have listed are to conduct a test for correlation with the additional factors that were previously listed, and to do another study to see if results will be consistent with a different class, different grade level, or different students. Thank you for listening to my presentation on the research that I conducted with technology, social studies, and student motivation. I truly enjoyed learning about the research process as I designed the study, collected and analyzed data, and then presented it to others. As I move forward with my teaching career, I will be able to take knowledge gained from this study to improve my instruction in teaching social studies to 4th grade students at Campbell Elementary School. Thank you.